Okay. All right, everyone. It's 6:30. We have a bunch of attendees. Looks like about half of our RSVPs have already logged on, which is awesome. So this is our first official live stream that we've ever done. So this is going to be interesting, but we will definitely figure it out. So just a little bit about Jersey Shore Women in Tech. So my name is Allison Lamano, and I am a product management lead at Define Logic, and we're located in Red Bank, New Jersey. We are a digital consulting agency, I guess is the best way to say it. We do everything digital, whatever you need. And we are also specializing in Salesforce, so that's our newest venture that we're working on. My co-founder is Brittany Jacobs. She's our software engineer manager at Vidya. And last year, Jenna Gaudio joined our group, which has been a great addition. She's the VP of Product Management at Vidya. So they are online. They are not going to be part of the broadcast, but they are probably available in the comments if you want to type a note to them. Sorry, guys, too quick. So for those of you who do not currently follow us on the social channel of your preference. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can get all the updates for all the events here if you're not on our official meetup group. And, you know, from time to time we post other information and share things with our audience. We also have a private Facebook group. So the private Facebook group is really beneficial. We actually have even had some members that have found jobs, gotten together with other members just through interacting at our networking group and then later connecting in our Facebook group. So our Facebook group is private, but it's public, so you can find it by searching Jersey Shore Women in Tech. You can also get the link off of our Facebook page, and I believe it's on the community tab, so you can find us that way. And these are some of the things that we are looking for our members to share in the group. You know, if you want to brag, you got a celebration, you got something to celebrate, you got a new job, promotion, raise, suggestions, if there's other events that maybe you're looking for somebody to attend with you, workshops, classes, those types of things, any relevant articles or blogs. If you personally got press, it's a great place to share there. If you're looking for a job, or if your company's hiring, and then just if you need any advice or information, it's a really, really great community. We've been doing this thing for a little over 2 years, and we're over 500 official members in our meetup. So we're really excited to be here and to be doing our first live stream and to be supporting you guys, even though none of us can meet in person right now. So we're always looking for speakers. We do have an application. You can find that on JerseyShoreWomenInTech.com. So if you want to speak, or you know somebody who would be great for our group, you know, send them over, or yourself go to our website and fill out our speaker application. Hi, Kristen. Hey, Jenna. Hey, Esther. I see you guys. See your comments over there. Thanks for joining. So also, this is the second year that we are doing a Sending Girls to Coding camp. So we are raising funds to help send local girls from undeserved communities to coding and robotics camp. We are also accepting professional sponsorships. So if you're interested, there is the QR code here. We're also on GoFundMe, so you can find us on GoFundMe. Last year we sent, I think it was 8 girls to coding camp, and they really had a great experience. They were high school students from Asbury Park, and they really enjoyed it. So we're looking forward to sending another group of girls this year. Hi, Judy. Thanks for joining. Okay, and so we couldn't do what we do without our wonderful sponsors. So our sponsors for tonight's meetup are CoWorks and Vidya. So CoWorks, they have a co-working space in the Lake House building in Asbury Park. With office amenities, private office space, and conference rooms. That's usually where we meet when we are meeting in person. It's a great space. They also have private office space in High Voltage Cafe, which is in Asbury Park, over by the train station on the corner there. And the big news is they are also looking to build a new location in Red Bank. Not looking, they've actually acquired a building. It's down the street from the Dublin House, for those of you that are familiar with Red Bank, and it's above the French Bakery. So so that'll be coming soon. CoWorks in Red Bank, which is exciting. We're very happy for Brett and Danny. It's great news. Oops, sorry guys, double clicked too fast. Okay, and then our other sponsor is Vidya. So Vidya is a music and media tech company located at Bellworks campus in Homedale. Vidya powers the business side of music labels and the media companies through an all-in-one platform that allows users to manage content rights, payments, and view reporting on analytics and revenue. So Vidya is looking to hire a senior data engineer, a rights manager specialist, and a client success manager. So you can reach out to Jenna or Brittany or anyone else from Vidya that belongs to our group, or go to vidya.com and look for their job postings page. Hey Lauren, thanks for joining. Okay, so now for tonight's event. So I'm going to turn it over to Denise and let her introduce herself and take it away.
Hi guys, how are you? My name is Denise Brouder and I'm the founder of SWAYworkplace, and I'm here with my colleague.
Hi guys, Amy Young. I'm the head of enterprise for Sway.
It is absolutely terrific to be here with you guys tonight. I have actually been following your group for some time. I heard about a year ago, and I've always admired the which you guys physically are willing to and make the effort to come together to meet. I mean, to me, developing a community myself, I find that really, really encouraging. So it was so terrific to get the opportunity to talk tonight. We would have loved nothing more than to be with you guys in person, and perhaps at some point in the future we'll be able to do that. However, this really is an excellent opportunity to get together, and it's a great way to pull together an alternative. And not only because it allows us to actually get together and have a chat, but the ability to actually think creatively and to problem solve and to be able to pivot so quickly and ultimately think with an agile mindset. These are actually the very skills that are most most highly demanded in what we call the future of work. So another way of kind of saying that simply is that you are all on this call today, and the team putting this together, you're all futurists. You're entirely, truly ahead of the curve, and you may not have known that until now. Avi and I are going to talk you through a presentation and include some video content that we put together this week that we think would be really interesting and really enrich the conversation. I would encourage anyone watching or listening to take some notes as we go through the topics. The presentation is somewhat brief, for one reason, because we want to leave plenty of room to have a conversation about it. Like, our style generally is to literally not to talk at you, but to talk with you. And from our perspective, it's just as important for us to understand what you think about this topic as it is for you to understand what we think. And therein is the conversation. So we'll leave plenty of time at the end to go over any questions that you have about the topics that we discuss. And it's also brief because I'm sure, as a lot of people can relate to, our COVID-19 world that evolved this week left me a little short-handed with 3 children running around and a husband, 2 work schedules, and trying to get it all done. So we made it to the presentation, and we are absolutely thrilled to be here. So let's go ahead and share our screen. Can you everyone see my screen okay?
Not yet. Let's
Nope.
see. I see it in the Skype. I'm just trying to figure out. It's not showing up here. Is that it? No.
I think also that we do have...
Got it. Let me switch.
All good?
Yep, there you go.
Perfect. And I think we also have a slight delay between.
Yep.
Okay. So we are here to discuss the topic of the future of work for women in the 21st century workplace. Sway. Sway is a community of people evolving to what we call work as a lifestyle. We are workplace strategists, and we specialize in the future of work transition from the traditional 9 to 5 routine to what we see as a future of flexible and remote workplace model. What that means to us that in the future, we don't see that we're going to commute to a fixed office on a fixed schedule to complete fixed tasks. That is the old style or the traditional model of work. We believe that together as a society, we're evolving to what we're calling a choice-based style of work, where people will have a choice in where and when they work within a culture of trust. So that's a big change, and that's a big evolution to move from the model of work that's been around for the last 100 years and actually has its origins in the Fordism, in the days that factories came online, to where we are today. So we call this evolution work as a lifestyle, and Sway is powering that moving forward. We're using technology to create a mobile-first community of people who want to evolve to work as a lifestyle. So we lead with community by bringing people together just like you do in your group, by bringing like-minded people together to talk about the conversations that matter. And we're doing so in a digital way. So we're not brick and mortar first, we're mobile first. Because our view is the ability to use technology, which is common, a phone in everyone's pocket, is an everyday technology, allows us to scale our message and scale our reach to truly generate change in the world of work. The future of work. I'm very interested to know if that's a term that a lot of people listening here have heard before. Future of work is a term being very, very widely discussed at the higher level parts of our society, and we experience it at the lower levels. Higher level meaning like the Deloittes and the McKinseys of the world, they cannot turn out work papers fast enough to describe the future of work and its impact in what we do, how we live, and how we are. We feel it in our everyday life in the way that algorithms and artificial intelligence change the way that we live. Alexa is a great example. But there's a huge space and a huge knowledge gap in between, which is where most of us live. And if the future is changing so rapidly due to technology, the vast majority of us need to be aware of what this change is and how to best prepare for it. So for at Sway, a big part of what we do is creating a future work readiness platform and technology and education to prepare us for this changing nature of work. So what is the future of work? We're using our very handy friend here, a Dunkin' Donuts cup of coffee, to explain what that is. Back in the day, way back in the day, Dunkin' Donuts used to sell coffee. So if you wanted coffee, you would simply jump in your car, drive to the store, and pick up a cup of coffee. Very simple. And that's the business model, and that's what it used to be way back in the day. Then we had periods of innovation as we thought of new ideas and technologies, and innovations came about. The first piece of innovation was the drive-through. How amazing was that? So instead of having to drive to the store, get out, wait in line, and the whole process, now I could get out, jump in my car, breeze through the drive-through, and head home. So now I've had a personal customer experience that made my day easier. The next piece of innovation was when Dunkin' Donuts came out and developed an app. That's a very common and a very powerful technology. So now when I'm at home, before I even leave my house, I can go onto my Dunkin' Donuts app, order my coffee, my bagel. I can pay for it, drive to the store, walk through. I don't even have to see anybody. I can just breeze through, grab my stuff, and head out. Now we're talking. Now life is getting nice and easy. Then we had another piece of innovation, and we came about with Uber Eats. So now I'm at home on my couch on a Saturday morning. I don't even have to leave my home. I can order through Uber Eats. Somebody will go pick up that coffee for me and bring it to my house directly to me. How great is that? Now I've had the ultimate customer experience. We see, in terms of the future of work, not that far away, that you're going to be sitting in that same couch on a Saturday morning. Alexa's going to have some piece of facial recognition technology built in. It's going to recognize just by your facial features that you want some caffeine. It's going to pre-order that coffee for you, Somebody from Uber Eats is going to show up at your door without even having asked for it. You're going to love this. Your coffee cup's going to come with a disposable sensor in it. And that sensor is going to be recording information like what time of the day, how fast did you drink it, what did you look like after you drank it. It's going to record that information back into the database, and it's going to improve the algorithm to continue this level of innovation. So what does this mean? It means that Dunkin' Donuts used to sell coffee. Now they sell a highly personalized, technological advanced customer experience. And that example right there is something that we can all relate to because we do it. We do it every day. So we have been involved in the future of work for the last several years. And in the same way, that's the way our economy has changed. We used to be a manufacturing-based economy, but now we're in the business of selling highly customized personal experiences using technology to get there. It's a simple example, but it's true, and that can relate to a lot of different situations that we have. But is that real? Is the future of work still really real? This slide is just for fun, but there's something really valid to look at here. The Jetsons. I'm sure a lot of people listening or seeing this will remember the Jetsons or watched it at one point. And I know when I was a kid and I watched it, I thought that this was so far off into the future, not something that we would ever experience ourselves. But let's look at this. You have a robot that's in your home that's taking care of your daily tasks for you. That already exists. A Roomba in the most simplest form, and many other kind of advanced robotics that can be in the home. Flying cars, like as we're here right now tonight, Elon Musk's Tesla is floating in space. And today, when people are the designers and engineers that are designing cars, they're actually designing the cars where the seats face each other. They're not actually facing out anymore because they're preparing for this future of autonomous driving. So in that way, the point here is simply the fact that the future is actually here. So when we say the future or the future of work, it sounds like something that's so far off, and maybe at one point it was, but that's not the case anymore. The future is here and the future is now. So this is something that we feel very strongly about at Sway, that we want to create a technology platform that builds a community of people that are aware of this impending change and that are self-preparing to be entirely successful and shaping the future of work. Amy, I can't see you because we would normally be here together, but if you have any points and you want to jump in anywhere, just feel free to do so.
No, thank you, Denise. I would just add that I think, if anything, what this past week has shown us is just how much we are living in a digital world, and how important it is that we continue to innovate services that can be direct to consumer, both inside and outside the home.
Absolutely the case. And look, I think that, where we are right now in COVID-19, and as we are all, as a community of working people and living people adjusting to this, we are all digging deep and pulling up our digital skills. And it may be uncomfortable because not everybody may be digitally native. But if you look at the example we talked about in the coffee example and using Alexa to order something, we truly are already conditioned to be digitally native. It's just a little step forward to get to the digital skills that are really going to make the impact. So where's the opportunity in all this, and why should we care? The opportunity is significant, and I can describe for myself when I started Sway about a year ago, I had an aha moment, and it was almost literally like the cartoon where you see that light bulb go off, and to me, it felt like I had that actual experience. I was studying at the beginning of last year a course with MIT, has an online course called Shaping the Future of Work. And going through that course, it just was very, very clear to me that everything about the way that we live is changing. So this isn't just a blip or a trend. This is truly a complete paradigm shift. And I saw an opportunity that the door to change was wide open. And it's wide open because we are charged with, we're responsible for, and can influence how to totally reimagine how, where, and why we work in response to this changing nature of work. It's very significant. And if you look at the example that we talked about earlier, Dunkin' Donuts used to sell coffee, so we used to be a manufacturing economy. And today, their management team aren't worried about the beans. Their management team are worried about how to use the latest algorithm to personalize your experience so they can keep you in their customer base. The real issue and the real opportunity we find is the fact that for companies, whether they're small companies to big companies, I would say both locally and nationally, as an economy, if we want to flourish and we want to remain the dominant nation and the dominant economic player, it is important for us to be able to evolve our model of work for the 21st century workplace. And in here, in this opportunity for change, is where the true opportunity is. The barriers that we look at and the things that we think are most significant that can be changed are the barriers of location, the barrier of time, and the practice of bias. Because for us, those are the three things in the world of work which are specifically tied to the traditional model. So if we think about where the traditional model came from, it came from the factory system, where you had to be at a particular location, which was the factory. You had to work particular hours, which was the schedule. And you have to work on very specific tasks, which are the actual factory system in play. And over the years, our economy evolved from one of manufacturing to one of knowledge, one of thought, which is the service-based economy that we live in today. The disconnect comes from the fact that we currently operate in mass scale, that traditional fixed nature of work, model of work. But we're doing so, we're trying to produce a knowledge-based service. And that's where the disconnect is. And that's where the opportunity is. So as we talked about, to actually connect companies to the economic opportunity and to be able to truly remain profitable into the future, we have to redesign work by addressing those three very specific things: the barrier of time, the barrier of location, and the practice of bias. Because if we can't remodel work, we can't access the skills that we need. And what's really interesting is that the change in the design of work that's pending and that we're powering at Sway has to do with things that are very fundamental that have traditionally held women back in the world of work: skills, untapped female potential, and the rate of female education. Skills is an interesting one. When we talked before about, at the beginning, we talked about being digitally native and having digital skills. Those are technical skills that can be learned or picked up and taught. But when people think about the future of work, and if it relates back to the example of how do I truly provide a really unique, highly personalized customer experience, because my customer can go somewhere else, I need to keep them with me. You need to actually and very seriously consider the softer skills. It's not necessarily technical, but what are the soft skills? And the skills that are very often talked about in the world of work and the world of the future of work are those of empathy, collaboration, teamwork, flexibility, the ability to problem solve. And that can almost all be boiled down to the process and the technique of agility. So agility means the ability to, like we did tonight on this call, by putting this together when it was something different from your normal model, that's being agile. And the fact that the team was able to put this call together, that's being agile. And the fact that everyone could attend this way and get the access to technology, that's being agile. But what's really interesting, I found, and I thought this was a huge opportunity, is the fact that the soft skills that are being highly cherished and they're significantly in demand are skills that are very naturally associated with women. And if I use my own case and those around me, moms and females that provide caring opportunities are the group of people that most naturally practice these skills in an everyday capacity. So if you think of, and I know it's been my case several times, I'm not sure if anyone can relate, but if you've ever been to the supermarket with kids, my son would do this every other trip. He would go nuts at the checkout counter if he couldn't get the Tic Tacs or whatever glossy candy was laid out right there at his arm's reach. And every time it was a no, because it was usually right before dinner. And he would throw a fit, get on the floor, kick his legs, scream around. I mean, the person behind the counter could not get those stickers out fast enough. They were flying. He just needed to calm the situation. And when you're in that situation, that is a very high stress environment where you have to truly collaborate with those around you, dealing with an irrational person to solve the situation in a calm way, looking on your skills of teamwork to remedy the situation. And that's just one simple example that can happen hundreds of times in a week, in a month, when you're a parent and you're a caregiver. So if women traditionally held that role, it's very true and it's just factual that we very traditionally and natively operate with the skill set that is most in demand in the future of work. So for us, that's why we think when we think about the opportunity for skills is natively in the female talent that remains entirely untapped. And what I mean by that is with the barriers of work we talked about earlier, that of location, time, and bias, are the barriers that have more or less held us back from being completely and fully engaged in the world of work. There are a lot of traditional elements to that. I think women traditionally held a caregiving responsibility specifically in the home. And the reality is that's not that long ago. So if the 1950s American dream model had the husband or the partner that was working and the mom that was at home caregiving, that was the basis of our American dream. And those ideals carry forward to today. And that world of work back then produced all the prosperity that we have. So we don't look backwards and think that we got a bad hand dealt to us. We see how we evolved as a country and where we are today, and we see that we now have the skills that are going to allow us to step into the 21st century workplace, to define it, to shape it, and to be fully engaged. So I visualize it in my mind that I think that right across our country, if our economy is the bedrock, and it is strong and has been strong, and right now we're challenged, but we will continue to be, underneath the bedrock of that is this deep, 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 deep well of untapped female potential. And I would define that as the female working population, which is about 50%, that are either in the world of work and are underutilized, that are on the edge of the world of work so they can't get in, or they've given up trying. So in our mind, that is just a pool of talent and a pool of untapped potential that in the future of work and the 21st century workplace, that's going to be uncorked. And that's where we're going to become completely and fully engaged. The other driver behind the female nature of the 21st century workplace is simply the rate of female education. It is the case that in recent months, we've tipped the scales and there are more females that are graduating college than ever before. And it's greater than those of male graduates. So not only do we have the skills naturally desired in the future of work, we know for sure that we have the ability to do so by the nature of our untapped potential, and labor is turning female. So when you bring these three things together, we know that the future of work is female, we know the future of work is flexible, and the future of work is digital. It seems crazy when you think about it. If you look at that, how could that be? Is this real? How can we ever change and break from the feeling of inertia in the way that we traditionally work today? But if we look at an example of the field of healthcare and the medical field, that's a field that you would look at and you would consider, how can a doctor work in a flexible and or remote way? It's not possible because a doctor must be on site with their patient. But we recently collaborated with a team that spoke to Harvard Dental and Medical. And they had put together a case study and a task force to look at many things about work-life balance, but specifically the idea of burnout and fallout they experience with the medical field. And the reality is that when they lose a physician, it costs $900,000 to replace that physician. Those are very real dollars, direct and indirect. We know that burnout, fallout, and stay out is a perpetuating problem within the medical field due to the current traditional design of work. And we know that there are more females graduating as physicians than ever before. So in a field where you would typically think, absolutely no way, a doctor must be at the location with a patient, there's no other way to do it. We know that that's the industry, and that is the profession that needs this new style of work more than anyone else, and more immediately than anyone else, to stem the economic flow of the $900,000 loss per physician. So we feel it's absolutely possible. So who is SWAY and what is it we're going to do about it? Our goal at SWAY is to create a gender-balanced world of work. That's our ultimate goal. We're doing so by creating a platform, and a platform is a double-sided business model. On one side, we have companies that hire, and on the other side, we have talent that work. And together, we want to eliminate the barriers of location, time, and the practice of bias. So on our platform and on our we're using our technology, we want to do 4 things with our community of people. The first is learn, and that's a key area. So we want to create a center of learning so that any job can become a hybrid digital job. Meaning that if you are a nurse, you don't necessarily have to become or be a data scientist, but you do need to know what a data scientist is, because their work product is going to shift the way that you work. If you have 10 tasks in your daily job, 3 are going to be automated away. So we want to make sure that our community of talent have an awareness and an ability to access those hybrid digital skills that make you aware of what that changing nature to your job is, and not to see it as a threat, but to see it as an opportunity. So not to see it as somebody's taking away my job, but to see it that somebody is eliminating some of the more menial and manual pieces of my job that allow me to become a caregiver. So that mindset shift is key. The proactive nature of learning and picking up those digital skills and digital awareness is absolutely key. And that isn't specifically for healthcare, that applies to any job, anywhere. So within our community and on our platform, we're creating access to the digital skills that are necessary for the future of work. ACT. ACT is a center of learning for workplace skills. So right now, most people can commute to an office, understand how to operate with the human workplace around you, and go through their job. But what do you do when you don't have an office to go to? Or what do you do if you choose not to? It's the world that we live in today. There's a very specific set of skills that you need to have an awareness of and a training in to understand how to be an effective manager and an effective worker in a remote and a flexible workplace. And we have some resources at the end that we're going to point you to that we developed that'll address just that. Connect is an important one. Connect is a center for where our digitally enabled and enhanced talent pool can meet our SWAY approved enterprise, and that's a key feature. The SWAY approved enterprise is an enterprise member that has demonstrated to us that they understand and are committed to the future of work and the style of work. So creating the commonality and the thought process about being able to step into the future work together is key, and that's what happens under the Connect feature. Support is the 4th and the last pillar, but it's the one that I think is the most important. It is the ability for our community to network and to lean on each other as we learn best practices, examples, and techniques to how do we effectively become a future of work worker. But the question is any of this possible? Amy, what do you think? You think it's possible?
Certainly possible, and I think we're being thrust towards it more quickly than any of us realize or understand.
Yeah, because the SWAY, even developing SWAY, and we do see that the future is changing, and we do want to create a world of work where it is barrier free and where we can truly create democratized access to work, where it's fair. And our issue had always been, how do you change the mindset? Like, how do you break out of inertia and have people to see that there's change and there's a different way to do things? And the biggest issue, of course, is that of fear. So in a traditional workplace model and traditional environment, if you're at your physical desk, your manager and your team can see you. So they feel good that you're operating as a team and they can see that you're doing the work. But what happens when you're not there? What happens when you step away? And that's why we address, when we advocate and we point out the idea of bias and proximity bias is what's at play. Because the practice of bias is what keeps these barriers of location and time in place. So proximity bias is this subconscious belief that if I don't see you, I'm not really sure what you're doing, I'm not really sure where you are, and I don't know if your work product can be up to par for what it is that we need. So that practice of bias alone has maintained this traditional style of work and these barriers that we faced for years in place, even as our economy has evolved and the nature of how we make money has evolved. And that's where the ultimate disconnect is. So at Sway, technology, the work we're doing, they're all inanimate objects that don't require location or time. We think about the psychology of work and how do we get people over the hurdle to not operate or manage and design workplaces from that of fear to one of trust. And I can tell you that a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I would have told you that we're still struggling with the idea for how do we push this forward and how do we really make the change. And in today's COVID-19 world, we feel like in some way if there was to be any form of a silver lining to this really, really difficult experience, it is the fact that on scale, everyone has been forced to look this way, to look at how we work, and to look at, is it possible? And in some way, we have a mass experiment that's underway. And to address this, at SWAY, we put together a rapid response program for companies and workers that are trying to rapidly deploy a remote workplace and understand how to be successful in it, particularly in times of uncertainty. So I wanted to share something with you that could be very helpful, and a video that explains a little bit more about how we see the impact of COVID-19 and that's going to get us to where we need to be, which is the workplace based on trust. So excuse me 1 second while I switch over here. We'll share this at the end, but this is a web landing page we put together with a guide that is a very detailed guide for how anyone, if you're a manager or worker, can learn the skills that you need today to rapidly deploy a remote world of work, and how do we work successfully in it. A step-by-step guide that takes the guesswork out. So what are the things you need to know today to make this happen? But most easily, I wanted to share this guide with you guys, and it's how we see we're changing in the world of work. Is there any volume there? Can you guys hear this?
Dee, we can't hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no volume?
I can't hear it.
Okay. Well, I'll share this with you guys at the end of the program. We will send out the link to you to take a look at. But what we're basically saying in here is the fact that we are calling out what the challenge of flexible and remote work only when it's unexpected, and the frustrations that you can feel trying to work in this style, mostly because if you weren't expecting it. There's a huge amount of uncertainty that comes along with it. And in this video, which hopefully you'll see at the end, we're describing for how do you address this from a mindset perspective. How do you address the uncertainty as a manager in leading with empathy? Because that is key. If you can lead with empathy, you're going to have your workers are going to be entirely more certain in where they're working by clearly stating your expectations at the beginning, by intentionally communicating, which is key. Always pick up your phone and make a phone call or have a video call over text or email. By addressing very specific financial concerns that people have in this new world of work. If I have to set up a home office, how is that covered? Technology plan is very key. If I'm out of my office and I'm away from my VPN, what can I use? Boosting morale is very significant in this new world of work. For managing uncertainty and emphasizing wellness is key. It's very difficult when your work life and your home life blend into one. So addressing this through very proactive measures, which are very easy to implement as long as we're organized and detailed. And you'll find in this guide, hopefully it's helpful for you guys, the specific tips for remote workers. And I'm very disappointed that we don't have sound, because this was a great video and we put a lot of effort into it. We will share with you guys towards the end. In short, we see intersection. Thank you. So to answer the question, is it possible? Is it possible to punch through this level of change that we're advocating for? So can we use technology? Can we create a community? And can we have a mindset change to step into an entirely flexible and remote way of work? And we think we can. We think that the response to COVID-19 is going to actually show people that we can technically work in this style on scale. And that if it's managed and rolled out carefully, it can be risk-free. Our first product that we're rolling out to make this world of work happen is called SWAY Conversations. And SWAY Conversations is an app that's going to be available next month. And we would invite anyone that's on the call today, because we know that you're all very technically savvy, to do two things. One is you can subscribe to our community at SWAYworkplace.com. And as part of our community, we will keep in touch with you and share our information and resources on work as a lifestyle and the evolution to work as a lifestyle. And the second ask we would have, if anyone's interested, is being a beta user for the first version of our app. That would be very key to us, because I know that everyone here is quite technical savvy and may have an interest in being part of the team and the initial community that is building SWAY Conversations and SWAYworkplace. So in our opinion, the future of work is bright. It's very bright. The future of work is female. The future of work is flexible. And most importantly, it's ours to have. I reflect back on the fact when I had that aha moment and I understood that there an opportunity for change was upon us, it's ours to lose. And the future truly can be ours. So I know that's quite a short presentation. Disappointed that video did not work out, but we will share it with you after the fact. But Amy, do you have anything else to add there in terms of how we frame the future of work and the opportunity for women in the future of work?
Yeah, thanks, Denise. I would just offer up to the group that really here, Denise started this company and I joined not that long after, because we realized that both from a community perspective and a corporate perspective, we were moving towards a more flexible model of work, some as their own option and some not. And so really here, it's just really an effort to build momentum on both sides and then to eventually bring both groups together. So I would urge you that if this is a matter that is personal to you, to really take a deep look at Sway Conversations when that does launch and being a part of that group. And if you are kind of representing more of a corporate or enterprise side, some of the work that I do at Sway is to create an advisory board on the enterprise side. I will be looking and how do we really further and advance those efforts? And I personally take the mindset that a rising tide lifts all boats. It's going to be great for women to be able to have that sort of environment as well. So I urge you from a corporate and enterprise side as well to engage with us, reach out to me, whether it's on our normal day-to-day business or our COVID-19 response. If you need or want more information that we might be able to help your teams with there.
Yeah, and that's interesting to reflect. Was there a question?
I don't think so. There was a little breakup on my side. If you guys can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I guess we can open up it to questions and comments now. So Rhonda is asking, she says, currently Mr. Trump wants to use telemed. Do you think people will trust this type of healthcare?
Well, at the moment, actually, telemed is actually being rolled out. For example, maybe a couple of weeks ago, my husband had a nighttime call with a physician online where she was checking in on him and he was checking in on her. If you go back to the idea we talked about, the idea of role of a nurse, for example, and if there's 10 tasks in a person's job in medical field, a lot of those tasks can actually be automated away. And in one sense, that frees you up to go back to the world that you love so you can produce and put more energy into the caregiving aspect of it. So there actually is a lot of valuable work that can be done through telemedicine. Now, remember, we're in a world today where our COVID-19 world, we're doing things not because we're choosing to, we're doing things because we have to. And in some ways that's advantageous because we talked about the idea of inertia. How do you actually push people to think in a different way? This is forcing us to do so. So in this world, we're kind of being forced to look at telemedicine as an alternative option, but my concern is that gives you a filter that it's a negative thing when in fact it's not. And that's why at Sway, when we see COVID-19, it's a massive reaction to it. We see it as an opportunity to change your lens and change the filter for how you see the world operating around you. Because we talked about the idea about Dunkin' Donuts, this idea of artificial intelligence replicating like the manufacturing process at a high level, or in telemedicine, the idea of being able to use an app to speak to your doctor as opposed to seeing them right in front of you. It's not a negative, it's an evolution. It's not a replacement of a job. It's not a negative thing. We are evolving as a society to be more efficient about how we do things. So the idea of advocating for telemedicine on a wide scale, we're going to evolve to that either way. And the idea with what we are today is we're accelerating that move because of the conditions of COVID-19, but it's a path we're going to get to anyways, because again, there are a lot of things that can be done virtually that provide significant value. So those meetings that do and must happen in person will do so because it's necessary, and that provides the greatest added value there. So we can actually create a dual approach that will entirely be efficient and free up resources and provide a better service for us.
Okay, great. So Brittany is asking, how can people talk to their bosses about considering switching to this new format of work from home and maybe even flex schedule? And I'm also struggling with this. I actually had a conversation with my project manager today, and I'm like, look, I'm home with my 10-month-old.
Yep.
It's going to be very difficult for me to attend all these meetings. I can get my work done off hours, but there might be some meetings that I need to drop from. I need, so what options can we talk to? I mean, I know there's core hours, there's
Yep.
all kinds of things out there. So what would you suggest?
So we have our normal world, and then we have our COVID world.
Mm-hmm.
So the example that you just gave there was in COVID-19, and we're all struggling with this. I have about 5 minutes before I got on this call, I had 3 children crawling all over me, and where else are they going to go? We're in this house together, and we're in it for the undetermined amount of time. So, Allison, in your case, there, in response to COVID-19, there is no other option except for what you can do your best and set your hours. So if you look at the guide that we created, we actually give you a step-by-step guide for how to have that conversation and how to actually structure your day. So one good example is in this COVID world, it's extremely important to set boundaries. Boundaries are key.
Mm-hmm.
And boundaries are how we're going to be able to move this forward. There are blocks of time that I can work during the day. There are blocks of time my husband can work, and we tag in and tag out for the kids. And whether I work early or late, my day just looks very, very different. But the onus is upon you to be very clear about communicating that. Meaning, your boss used to be able to see you and hear you. Now he or she can't. So it's upon yourself to create that day one work schedule for what is what works for you and clarify that to your boss and to your team. So COVID-19 is a bit of a special situation because we're rapidly deploying this in a way that we're all trying to adjust both on the worker side and the manager side. Clarity in your communication is absolutely key, and clarity and boundaries about your availability due to your caregiving needs is an absolute given. As long as you're clear and you're detailed about that, go for it. Now, in Brittany's question, that's actually literally why we started Sway. And Brittany, that question is so well founded because in our mind, it shouldn't be a conversation. In the future of work, that will not be a conversation. You will not have a bad conscience about approaching your team and describing that you want to have either a flexible or remote schedule, because in the future of work, that's going to be expected. We see that being the normal model of work. And at Sway, that's where we're creating a community. And within our community, we're creating this world of expanding enterprise and talent members that understand that work is flexible by nature. We're one person living one life, and we don't work and live in a box. We used to, 100 years ago, we were in a factory system because you had to go to the factory to get your job done. You had to work in these blocks of time. You had to do specific tasks. That's where the mentality started from. So where we are today is very, very, very different. In the future, we're not going to work like that. We are going to have a choice-based way of working where the talent member and the worker is going to be able to influence where and when they work, but within a culture of trust. And that's extremely important to point out, meaning we've had some conversations with some enterprise people that have described that on paper, their company is ideal. They have work from home policies, they have accommodations, they have a lot of features in place that would create the world that we're describing, but it's not supported. And if you're not supported by management on the inside of your company, it's deemed the proximity bias that you're really not cutting up, you're not cutting what we need, and you're deemed to be an inferior worker in some way. So at Sway, we're changing that by changing the narrative, and we are advocating how people can actually describe. And again, in our guides, we talk about how you can literally go to your team. And again, we're the generation that are going to have to do the heavy lifting of this conversation, Brittany. It's not going to be given to us. We have to define it, we have to clarify it, and we have to earn it. So the generation behind us, it's a given that this is how we're all going to work. And a lot of it is about being very clear about what you need, being very clear about your time by establishing what your home office or your remote office can look like, and being very clear about what you need. I don't think we're all going to work remote. I don't actually think that's a model that can be followed. Like maybe some jobs can be 100% remote. We're advocating for is the policy of choice. The idea that I'm a unique person with unique needs. Maybe my choice is to be in the office 5 days a week because I find that identity valuable. Maybe my choice is some flexible nature with some co-working, some in the office, Maybe it's set, maybe it's fixed, maybe I pivot around depending on the business needs. But the policy of choice is what we're advocating for, and we think that can be achieved by having very clarity in what your work plan is. So you ultimately, to allow your management team as the generation that's going to make this happen, move from fear to trust, you need to allay those fears by being clear and intentional about how you intend to work.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just add, thanks, Denise. I would just add upon that real quick for Brittany. If this is a conversation you're looking to have more immediately, and just so everybody knows, I'm also a certified coach as part of my background. So I also kind of offer those services to Sway and a lot of the material that we do put out. One of the things I would just say, this whole COVID situation is actually possibly a good opportunity for you. It's going to point out where those pain points are that might prevent you from getting agreement on a good work from home or remote policy, flexible policy. But one thing I would try and pay attention to as things unfold here is, what do you think is the real reason why they might be for or against a work from home policy? Is it an HR policy that might be holding your manager back from agreeing to it? Is it, as Denise talked about, proximity bias by your manager? I would say to kind of peel back those levels and start with kind of that why behind why your company might not be open to it or familiar with. And then you can start to attack your strategy as to your counterpoints, as to why those may or may not be true and what you want to do about it.
And again, just to round out that point, the comment is the fact that this style of work already exists and people do it in pockets, but how do we normalize it? Like, how do we make this the go-to model? And it really truly is this idea about having people remove from fear, because your first reaction from your boss may be, you're giving me more work and risk. And you can communicate it and articulate it in a way that you actually mitigate that. And perhaps it is a 2 to 3 month, you could start by having a 3-month trial. Just say, this is my intent for the next 3 months. This is where I'm going to be working and how I'm going to be working. This is how I'm going to communicate with you. These are going to be my objectives, my achievables. I'm going to communicate in these ways. Let's check in once a week, once every month. Let's check in every 2 months and then 3 months. Let's evaluate how the program went. So as opposed to just saying to your boss, I want this and I want it now. That's one way to say it, probably not successful. But you can go to your boss and say, I have a desire to work in this way for these reasons that are valuable to me. And enacting this style of work will allow me to be more loyal, be more productive, be more value added. And this is how I would propose that we make this change. For the next 2 to 3 months, I will work in these locations on these tasks with these deliverables. So by establishing that, that's a very different conversation to have. Rather than going to say, I want this, you can go say, I'm solving a problem by this. Sometimes it's perspective. We think a lot of this is due to perspective. And we give very specific guidance on a case-by-case situation for how to make that happen. Because in the end, we're all moving here. This is the path we're following. This is, like I mentioned, this is the future of work. And if we can get there in an orderly, quick way, better for us.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so our next question is from Catherine. She says, you said soft skills are highly sought after. I'm currently on the job hunt. How can I showcase soft skills on a resume?
Okay, so I think first of all, we're going to identify what those are and how they relate to you. So for example, problem solving and the ability to be agile are very key skills. Collaboration, you can demonstrate, so it's not a certificate you can get. So you can go, if you wanted to learn a computer program, you can go and get a certificate that would demonstrate that. I would advise, and what we're doing is Sway is revolving to the new type resume that includes not necessarily your education, but your skill set. So your tenure and your education were almost the model of the past. And a good example is, I believe this is right, Amy, I don't even think Google asks for resumes anymore. They're only interested in what your skill set is today and what you can do in the future. And so they assess people differently. So we're evolving to how do we describe our resumes to be more applicable to the future of work. So what are your skills? What can you do today? What are those hard skills and what are those soft skills? And again, you can't get a certificate because you can't buy empathy off the shelf, but you can practice empathy in your work life, and you can describe moments and times, successes, projects that you've worked on, how you've overcome obstacles, and how you achieved your outcome using all the soft skills that are in demand, pointing to examples in your own work life and even in your own personal life for how you've exemplified these soft skills and what they mean to you. So it is an evolution, as all of this is, but the evolution of the resume is the biggest piece of it too. So those are ways that you can demonstrate the soft skills. So I would say step one, identify, and we can share those with you, the soft skills that are in demand. Two, look for in your own work practice and your own work experience and your personal life experience, areas where you've demonstrated those in successful ways. Three, document that in a succinct way and include that on your resume.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Esther. Esther says she doesn't know if you mentioned it, but how does Sway make money?
Well, interestingly enough, we are we're not non-for-profit. That was actually something we thought about at the beginning. Should this be a nonprofit? Because the team at Sway, we have very diverse backgrounds, but we come together and we unite in our passion for what we're doing. And that's simply because each one of our team members at Sway has at some point in their professional life in the last few years where we've had a revelation of this is not the way. There's got to be a better way to do this. Why are we imposing all these hardships upon ourselves that internalizes doubt, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, challenges that are unnecessary noise day to day, and ultimate unhappiness that it manifests in different ways. And we all had this revelation. We're like, all right, let's do something about this. And we came together and we started Sway to change the world of work. And initially my thought was, should this be a nonprofit? Because we're leading with purpose. And we truly are driven by our desire to achieve the outcome of a gender balanced and equal world of work. And our view was that we want to be a model to demonstrate what purposeful capitalism looks like. That is the new model. The idea of capitalism as we currently know it is under attack and has contributed to an enormous amount of income inequality that is accelerating at rapid rates in today's world. So we want to show how purposeful capitalism can work when you lead by purpose. So in our instance, we are monetizing on the enterprise side because in terms of income, that's where it all lies. So we're at its core, we're developing a technology platform with technology tools. And it's a double-sided network. One side of the network are companies, the other side are community members. And in our view, community member will never have a cost. It just won't happen. That's not our view. But the enterprise side, to access our tools, to access our knowledge, our understanding, and our guidance, that's where we're going to monetize. We mentioned earlier the fact that we're not looking to work with just any company. We're looking to work with a company that could be Sway approved. And for us, we're no longer willing to work with people that are going to walk the walk or talk the talk. I get this wrong every time. I cannot get it right, but I think you know what I'm saying. People that are going to actually, like our example we used earlier.
Talk the talk, no.
Talk the walk, talk walk, talk
Sorry,
talk.
The walk, not talk.
Talk the walk. I'll never get it straight. We're looking for enterprises that can prove that they're willing to be
homeschooling. So give us a break.
So in short, we're monetized through the enterprise side to access to our knowledge, our data, our information, and our guidance, and ultimately access into our talent pool on the Connect side. But again, it's not just any company. There's companies that are willing to demonstrate that they operate in terms of work as a lifestyle. So that, Brittany, we don't have to have that conversation anymore. It's assumed that your skills are so supreme that you are an adult, that you are professional, that's not a conversation that even has to have. It's known from the beginning that you have influence on where and when you work.
Okay, great. Thank you. So our next question is from Kayla, and she's saying, do you see any industries being at risk for being completely automated?
From being completely automated, I wouldn't say there was the area of talk maybe about a year ago. There was just such mass panic that artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning, big data was going to eviscerate large swaths of our labor force and roles. And I think what we're coming to after that, those sensational headlines came across is the fact that, okay, we can take it easy here. That's not going to happen. It's not the fact that it's going to automate away large chunks of roles, but it is going to change the nature of how they work. So interestingly, if you look at the world of work, you have lower level skill jobs. It could be, very manual jobs like a hairdresser, a nail technician, anyone in the service industry. You have middle skill jobs, which could be almost, if you consider them almost like business oriented jobs, clerical type jobs. And then you have higher level jobs, high levels of specialty like a physician. What's interesting is that in the future of work, the lower level, their jobs are going to expand and boom. because it's the specialists that are earning all the money. So they're employing all these lower level services as a lifestyle. It's the ones that are in between. And that's why I also started Sway, the absolute fear of the fact that it's estimated that over 100 million women in the global US workforce could be massively displaced by automation if you're not prepared for it. So that's where we go back to the idea about Sway Learn is the idea that we want to create a center for one, awareness and access to digital skills that allow you to become a hybrid role in whatever your role may be. So I don't think it's going to eviscerate any roles or industry to total automation. I think it's going to completely change the nature of the job that you have. And those that are going to be successful in the future of work are those that are prepared. And in our community is ready because we're already having this conversation and talking. We're doing talking the talk, walking the walk in our community.
Okay, great. Thank you. Denise Krager, she says, I've been working in that type of environment you describe. I work virtually remote out of my home office as an independent contractor providing instructional services to design online courses. And I work with a third-party organizations who partner with higher education institutions using digital tools, conferencing, text messaging, etc. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, and you raised a point there, Denise, also that I want is extremely key to raise here is the fact that in our U.S. labor force today, about 40% of our working people work in what we call the gig economy. And that's a contract-oriented role, 1099. And I know that we all have different opinions on whether this is right or wrong, if it's convenient or it's not. I have a very deep worry about the evolution of gig, and the Upworks of the world they're putting a pretty bow on a huge problem, meaning a contractor in its purest form would be a McKinsey or Deloitte, where you don't need to have that person on staff. You need them to come in, do a job, and move on. And they do it very well, and they provide that service. And there are a lot of companies and situations where that's entirely appropriate. My fear is that over the last several years, the gig work and gig economy has evolved in a way that we've created for ourselves a culture of day laborers. So just like the idea that if you needed a day laborer, you could go to Home Depot and find a construction worker for the day. We're doing the same thing, but in digital format through this absolute push towards gig. And the real deep worry there is the fact that when you are a contractor, you have absolutely no social safety benefits. You're not a full-time employee, so your access to healthcare is very difficult. You don't have unemployment insurance. You difficulty accessing any form of 401k plan. You're generally an hour worker, and that model of work is a race to the bottom in pay. So it may be very efficient for companies to be able to hire and upskill, or either add people and drop people from their labor force at will. But the contractor model and the gig work is really, it's eroding our value in our labor market in the US. And if we look back towards COVID-19, this is my greatest fear being realized, that we have a lot of people that do not have full-time employment and whose jobs may or may not be very significantly impacted by COVID-19. At Sway, we're taking the opposite approach. What I found from gig, from everyone I've spoken to, is they take gig work because they want to have choice. They want to have domain over their existence. They want to be able to choose when and where they work because it's a very natural human instinct. So at Sway, we're saying, why can't we have that same level of choice in a standard model of work where I work for a company, where I have loyalties to the company? I'm not expecting to hop in and hop out. I want to work with this company in the future. So establishing a loyal and genuine workplace relationship by being a full-time employee and layering in the ability for choice, to me, that is the future of work.
Thank you. And then Brittany has a follow-up question, a couple follow-up questions. That brings me to a follow-up question for business owners in the crowd. How can business owners decide if work from home and flex schedule for their employees will work for them with little to no risk? And secondly, how could a business know if working with Sway would be beneficial worth the investment for them?
Was the first question for me?
Yeah, so that was Brittany's follow-up. So it's just for business owners, how can they decide if work from home and flex schedule for their employees will work out for them with little to no risk?
So I would say in terms of risk, there's risk in any employment relationship. So if I hire you and you walk in my door, I've already spent either time and resources on you, and I'm taking a risk that you're going to be good. Just because you're sitting beside me doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the best level of value, because maybe it's not an appropriate job. Maybe I'm not onboarded and efficiently. Maybe I'm truly not dedicated to the position. There's all kinds of risks you can take. So you assume employment risk, whether somebody's sitting beside you or not. That is just the way of the world. For a business owner deciding how do you mitigate that, I will say that I recently did an interview with NFIB. They're a trade organization for small businesses across the U.S. They advocate for them federally. And the questions were just that. How does a small business approach the idea of rolling out some form of flexibility in their workplace without having risk? And my solution was what we described earlier. Even if you're at a large company, whether it's small, medium, or large, remember, it's not the size of the company, it's not the role, it's generally not the person, is the idea of how do we mitigate the fear. And fear of what? The fear that I see from everyone I've spoken that has evolved this style of work, a deep sense of gratitude and loyalty, a higher level of productivity that comes from being able to choose when and where you work. It's ultimately, it balances you out. Caregiving, self-care, care of elders is a fact of life for most people. And when you work in a traditional fixed model of work, you only bring a certain part of yourself to the office. So maybe I'm not absorbing the fear that if I don't see you, you won't work, but I am absorbing the risk that if there's something on your mind or work does not suit you, you're not fully productive in the office. But am I willing to accept that because I can see you and I've eliminated that one slice of risk? So ultimately, there's a lot of ways to look at it. We think the evolution for all businesses, small, medium, or large, is by just putting your toe in the water and just stepping gently into it. By the idea that select a person or a group within your company by defining a particular, almost like a proof of concept. Roll out a proof of concept, test it. See what went well, see what didn't go well, evaluate the risks and the opportunities, and then define how you move forward from there. Because at least then your no is no longer guesswork.
Okay, and then
What was
the follow-up question was for the follow-up: how could a business know if working with Sway would be a beneficial investment for them?
ultimately, if we're monetizing through the enterprise side, it's a workplace. We're workplace strategists, which means that we have a view on how do we design the workplace of the future that truly and ultimately opens up and solves for diversity and inclusion in a way that isn't just on paper or isn't theoretical or isn't fluffy, but is looking at why diversity and inclusion issues exist. And a big part is by eliminating the barriers, location, time, and the practice of bias. So Sway has, and we're developing very specific technologies and programs to address that within an enterprise that empowers the lower line managers to understand what bias is, to find the bias in yourself first, and then to find and call out the bias around you. Because we eliminate bias, we have an opportunity to enact the lack of location and time barriers. So the KPIs that there are a lot of KPIs that are more intangible, but the most tangible KPIs are your retention model. Are you attracting? Are you retaining? Promoting, developing, and having positive alumni experiences from your workforce? And in this ultra tight labor market where companies to be successful need to look not simply for a role, but for a hybrid role with digital skills, we think that being able to hire from our talent pool or to make the connections within our community will be of utmost value to a company preparing for the future of work, most measurable by the turnover and the efficiency in their worker model.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I would just add to that real quick. It's from the enterprise side as well, Brittany. It's a matter of Sway having the conversation with their partners about what the reason is that they're interested in working with us to make this change, right? Are we talking about your desire as a company to shift your culture, to invest more in your employees? Is it more of the retention factor that Denise talked about? Is it possibly a capital cost concern or project that you're undertaking to look at? Is it a cost savings to have people work more remotely? As Denise mentioned, there are just some more intangible reasons to do it and tangible reasons to do it. So we get really clear as well with our partners in the beginning on what type of change they're looking to make and why before we set that consultancy and put those practices into place.
Okay, hold on. Okay, and Brittany says now suddenly possibly with the with COVID-19 because it affects able-bodied, healthy people and people who don't need to be home with kids. Oh, wait, I missed the first part of that. Wait, do you think real change will come from this forced situation, or do you think it will go back to being biased towards those who cannot be in the office 9 to 5?
I can tell you that my perspective on Sway 2 weeks ago to today has completely changed, and changed in our favor when we talked about the idea of inertia and shifting it. Brittany, the reality is that the genie is out of the bottle. And once it's out, you can't put it back in. Meaning, there's nothing that we could have said and done at Sway, even if we do have the most legitimate and specific analytical business reasons for enacting a workplace model that's based on flexibility, truly based on flexibility and choice. It would have taken us a lot longer to get people over the hurdle as to why I should look at this. And I can tell you that right now, with this mass adjustment to remote work, if it's done right, it's going to change the way we look at work. And I think it's going to permanently change the way we look at work. And a great example is we consulted with a large law firm over the course of last week on using our guidebook and our resources for how do they have their people. And then again, a law firm is probably the most non-remote work environment you're going to find. And they were, what do we do? How do we take all of our legal secretaries and paralegals and not have them beside us? But they've had to do this. And one of the pieces of feedback that we got is that one of the law partners said they've never communicated more with their paralegal in the last week than they have probably in the last month or several months.
Oh, wow.
Is that interesting?
Yeah.
Do you know why that is? Because the art of communication, the skill, which is the future of work skill, has come to the surface. And we can't assume it anymore. Meaning when you're in the office, you see somebody in many different ways. I'm sitting in a meeting with you. I pass you by in the hallway. Maybe you pop into my office to say something, or I say something to Amy, and Amy indirectly tells Allison. There's a huge amount of human connection and communication that's happening all the time. But when you're remote, you have to replace that with very intentional and clear communication that's a lot more efficient. So that's one example of how when we advocate for the model, we say you can look at this as fear of loss, or you can look at this for an opportunity to improve on the skills that matter the most.
I'll just add for some levity. One of my favorite memes that I've seen passed around this week is a guy sitting at his home office chair saying, "Huh, all those meetings really could have been emails after all."
Oh, that's great. And it's probably true, right?
I think
yes, we're all figuring that out.
We're going to find, I mean, there are actually people, there are startup companies that are using technology and artificial intelligence to eliminate waste in the office. And I mean, waste of time.
Oh.
They're literally analyzing, they're looking through your reams of emails, your messages, where you are, like kind of person, group by group, to look for inefficiencies of time. And that's happening. So when we talk about the future of work, it's happening all around us in ways that we're not even aware of. So the idea that you're not spending maybe 20% of your day talking to Betty at the water cooler because she wants to tell you about her dog from the weekend, is that necessary all the time? So the efficiency in this model as well, there's a lot to be said for that. And we think that people are going to start you experiencing that and seeing the value. And that's only one of the many values from this way of working.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? This was great. So we are gonna we always send out a follow-up survey after our events. So I think the only thing is we're not sure who attended. So I think we're just gonna send some communication to try to figure out who attended, get some feedback on that, and we'll definitely be sharing all the links from Denise and Amy. The video, the links to sign up for the beta. And anything else that you want to share? I think you mentioned another document that you have, right, on work from home.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of information that we can send. We're very happy to share all of that.
And then, hold on. Hi, Liza. I don't see your question above Brittany's for some reason. Was it above the first one? No. Would you mind sharing again, Liza? For some reason, it's not displaying over here. So we'll just give Liza a minute if she wants to share her question again.
We're also not going anywhere. We're more than happy to continue the conversation with anyone that wants to continue the conversation.
Okay, so that's a good point. Like, how can people reach out to you?
We're going to send some information, like we mentioned, some follow-on details. We are actually, in regards to COVID-19, we've created a very simple, easy-to-use page with resources that includes a calendar link. So you can very easily just book a 20-minute conversation with us. We can be very happy to speak with you directly about anything we talked about on this call. Not necessarily in regard to COVID-19, but if you have very clear questions about anything we touched on, more than happy to explore the conversation. Because remember, this is a world that Amy and I are not going to change on our own, even though we wish we could. We're going to get it. We're going to do it by creating the community. And there is something very powerful, as you guys know, because you are a community. There's something extremely powerful in the opportunity of change that's found in the power of community. And that's why we're leading with the Sway community conversation, the conversation app, because there is nothing more significant than our ability to know you're not alone in this. We share the same challenges. We have the same ideas and fears, and we have the same hope. And for us, we see nothing but hope in our future and for women in the 21st century workplace. So for us, if you want to go for a coffee on Saturday morning, go for a run, I'm in. You let me know where, you let me know when. Me and Amy, we're in. Right, Amy? Maybe not literally, but I mean, my point is that we are very happy to continue the conversation in any form, and we will provide direct contact information for us along with the follow-up materials.
Okay, awesome. I think Jenna is going to share a link. I'm just looking for it to show up. And that'll be for everybody. So I'll just share that, and we'll be wrapping up shortly. Thanks again, guys. This was great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and good luck for the next foreseeable future in COVID-19. We are here to support.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, guys. Good night. Take care.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining.